Okay, people don't pay attention unless I put his face up here, so I'm putting his stupid face behind me so you'll listen to me as to why I don't believe what I think is Patrick's version of events of what happened. And the reason for that has to do with the power and control dynamics of an abusive relationship. And granted, I know we don't have evidence of physical harm or violence leading up to this from Patrick, but what I do believe is happening and what we're seeing unfold in this case is that Lindsay is somebody who is susceptible to living under the power and control of somebody who is deeply committed to narrative, of somebody who is deeply committed to the idea that they are entitled to have power and control in the relationship. And within that, he is entitled to the power and control of the narrative over facts and evidence, over reality and truth. And what I think is happening is that in that regard, what we're seeing is that that dynamic is still carrying forward even after this tragic event. Being that Patrick is 100% committed to a narrative that defies the facts and evidence at times behind this case. And Lindsay has been living under this dynamic with Patrick long term. And so I think we're just seeing another iteration of somebody who's susceptible to that dynamic in a relationship, assuming the responsibility, accepting the role of being the caretaker, of doing the physical and emotional labor in a relationship, and thereby absolving the other person of said labor and allowing them to remain in the position that they feel entitled to have in this, because it's too clean. It's too black and white. And what I think is happening is that Patrick is somebody who is so committed to narrative over facts and reality that within this story, he's still telling a story. This is why it's a red flag to me, is because he's positioning himself as both the victim and the hero simultaneously. Which is it? That you either were powerless and had no control over what happened, or that you were the hero and were so powerful and had all the control. Pick one. Pick one. It can't be both. And the reason why that's a red flag for me is because I need you to go look up Dr. Craig Childress and his 55-minute presentation on parental alienation. And what he describes is a triangulated power dynamic in a relationship. And the reason why I find the victim and hero status that Patrick is trying to hang on to as a red flag is because a person who is the unsafe parent, the person who feels entitled to have power and control in the relationship, that is what they will assign as their roles. Because in a triangulated dynamic, what that does is automatically create a role and position for a villain. And in order for there to be a villain, there has to be a victim. And oftentimes it's the children. But because the children are taken out in this situation, it also gets shifted to him. So Lindsay becomes not only the villain to the children, but she also becomes the villain instantaneously, thereby to Patrick. That's why this is all a massive red flag to me, because at no point does Patrick assign regret, remorse to himself. He is simply a victim of what Lindsay failed to do, what Lindsay ignored. At no point does he talk about regret, remorse for man, I wish I had helped her more. I wish I had tracked her medication better or whatever. He's absolved at every twist and turn of responsibility, and therefore never taps into the idea of grief, regret, etc., and solely hangs on to the position of being the victim and the hero. And I need you to look up Dr. Craig Childress and the parental alienation triangulated dynamic, because it helps explain what I am seeing in Patrick and his behavior and his commitment to narrative. Because it's very black and white that Patrick is the holder of all good and that Lindsay is the holder of all bad. And when you're in the presence of somebody who is committed to narrative over facts and evidence, what I think is happening is the residual dynamic from that relationship carrying forward even beyond this tragedy. Because what I think has happened is that Lindsay has assigned herself throughout their relationship, even if there wasn't physical violence and harm before this incident, I think she was susceptible to assuming responsibility for the emotional and physical labor in this relationship because she was willing to work hard to get Patrick's love, affection, acceptance, etc. And so she's lived under that dynamic for an extended period of time. She's learned to live in that world. And so now, on the other side of this tragedy, she's still assuming that responsibility. I think that Lindsay is somebody who was able to have this happen to her because she was conditioned for years to accept responsibility for the emotional and physical labor in this relationship. And of course, that's not going to change in the face of a tragedy this big. Lindsay is Lindsay, and that is who she is to her core. Like psychosis or not, it's too convenient. It's too perfectly wrapped up for Patrick's benefit. Anybody still with me?